In this exercise, we're going to take our previous file that we created for responsive design, where we completed our header and our footer in the master, and we're going to develop some content now on two individual pages, and we'll again apply the responsive design aspects to each of these pages. I do have a finished version here right now, and I have it open in a browser as well as in Muse. So let's just take a look at what we're going to create, and then we'll go back to that semi-completed file and rebuild these. All right. Right now I'm looking at the browser here, and I'm looking at it at its smallest breakpoint, which would imitate a mobile phone basically. And again, my footer at the bottom here, and my header at the top, which contains the mobile menu. And what I have here are some images that are set to responsive. This image is also set to responsive. We've thrown a drop shadow on here. I have responsive text areas, as well as a title, which I'm going to show you how you can kind of cheat, because text doesn't actually respond, or rather change over time. It will change with the breakpoints, but graphics will gradually change, such as the photos. So I'm going to show you how you can make an SVG graphic for large titles, which will actually use that attribute. So if I start to resize this, you can see that the title is growing in size. Now the text isn't growing in size, but it is reflowing. So the text boxes will resize and the flow will change. And then at certain breakpoints, you see I lost my menu at the top here. Now I go to the next breakpoint, I get the larger logo. My text is getting larger in certain areas as well. This, along with the photos, are all set to responsive, so they're just gradually getting larger along with the browser. But certain elements are appearing and disappearing when we hit the breakpoints. And there's another breakpoint. If I scroll down here, you can see my footer. And also the text slightly changing in its location for layout, as well as changing in font size. Now I could conceivably even change the fonts, the colors, the styles. And the big part here is that we can actually show and hide certain things, as you know, depending on the breakpoint. All right, so that again is my completed version inside of the browser. It is a little slow in the browser, I find, when I'm testing, but let's just see if we can go to About Us here. I think I do have it open here in another tab, yeah. So we'll also create a second page. Well, we have the page, but we'll populate it with a widget, using a map widget, text box, and photos. And again, these guys here. I find that the widget takes a little while to refresh in preview mode here, but will come back eventually. But you can see that certain things are changing in location and in size as we change the browser size. All right, so let's go in here and we'll go into Muse. And we'll take a quick look. Let me just close these for a second here. I'll just go to the plan view. And again, if we go to our master, which we created earlier, we have the 4 breakpoints: 1200, 914, 716, and 550. Now when I get to the individual page, I'll probably add one more at 480. But here are my main breakpoints in the master. Okay, so we'll close that. And if I go to the home page, you can see that I have breakpoints here as well. I actually didn't create the 480 here, but I think I might do that after when we create our new one. But there we have it. So if I go to the largest one, my graphics are in place, and they are all set to responsive width and height. Now this graphic is actually 2 overlapping. One is simply a rectangle box set to red with an opacity of 40%, and I simply set it to responsive width and height as well. Now if I go to my layers, you can see here I actually have 2 layers, and that's something we're going to need to address very soon, because we want to make sure that the mobile menu is always on top of all content. So when I'm done the presentation here and we start our new one, we will separate the mobile menu elements and put them on a new layer. But for now, let me just open up layer 1 and show you that I have a group here. I grouped those 5 or 6 photos, And they are underneath a translucent swatch of red. And that red is this rectangle here. And I suppose I could reshuffle that up here and it wouldn't make a difference. And that was just to give it a red tint, if you will. I could have done that in Photoshop, could have done a lot of ways, but doing it this way, I still have control over the purity of that tint, if you will. It can be quite opaque, like that, or quite subtle. So I'll just set that back to 40. Okay, so I actually have two graphic elements. They are both set to responsive width and height. So if I hide that for a second, or rather hide this for a second, these are 6 photos grouped, and I used the rectangle frame tool to set these up and then populate each frame with an individual photograph. And you'll notice when I have groups, if I click away for a second here, initial click selects the group, subsequent clicks will go into the grouped elements, which is very convenient. I really like that feature. Alright, so that are my graphics. This is a graphic as well. And this is a graphic as well. Even though it looks like text, it's an SVG, and I'll show you how you can make that in Photoshop. This is true text here, true text, and if I scroll down, text box, and these footer elements are all in my master. Alright, so I've got 1, 2, 3 text boxes, and technically 6, 7, 8 photographs, placed images, 6 of them grouped together, and I'll turn the visibility back on for that rectangle, which is providing me a translucent tint. Okay, and if we go to the About Us page, we've got our widget of the map, 1 text box, and 1 photo. Alright, and they are pinned mostly to the left and the right according to what side they're on, and that goes true as well for the home page. Okay, so let's create this content from scratch here. I do have my older file open. It's called Responsive 2, and if I go to my master, you can see I've got the header and the footer all completed that we did in our previous exercise. Alright, so we're not going to do anything else on the master. Everything else from here on in are on the pages. So we'll close that master. And if I go up here, I'll leave this other one open just kind of as a cheat sheet maybe. Let's just go into the home. And the first thing I did was I just established some picture boxes that were the same size along the top and tightened them together. And then I populated them with images. So let's start with that. So we'll just go to the rectangle frame tool, which is nice because it's basically a placeholder for images that we want to put in or even replace later on. And I will just kind of I'll use my shift key to constrain that. Actually, let me restart that there. I'm going to hold my shift key down when I start, and that will keep them as constrained squares. Now once I have the whole group of 6, I'll grab them all and I'll tweak the sizing. But right now that's good. That's close to what I want. And Option key down on the Mac, Alt key on the PC to duplicate. And the Smart Guides will probably hold me in place, but I can also hold my Shift key to constrain that. And I'll just duplicate these and snap them next to each other. I might need to tweak them later so that there's no gaps in between. Now I can also shift click to select all 3 here. And then just, with my Alt key still down, just duplicate it. I want to get 6 across, so I've got the 6, so let me grab them all here now. I'm shift clicking, and I'm just going to resize this. Holding the shift key down. And I'll just go from edge to edge like that. Okay. So I can click away now. And what I'll do at this point is I'll bring in all 6 images. So I'll just go File, Place. And I do have a folder which you will get off your downloads. Alright, so let's just go Animate 1 through 6. So I'll just grab them here with my Shift key down. And this way I can drop them in one at a time without having to return to this dialog box each time. So I click Open here. And you can see there's a little number 6, which tells me I have 6 images to drop in. And you see when I go over the boxes inside, they highlight, and that means I can drop one in there. So I'll start by just dropping this in, and then I'll go and make some adjustments. Okay, nice and easy. Everything perfectly sized. It makes life quite easy with these boxes. And I'm just going to go over in here and I'll actually do a save. I think I'll do a save as, and I'll just call it 2A. That way I can go back to that original if for some reason I mess up. It's good to do versioning when you're working on various phases of a project. So let's just take a quick look. I want to see what the gaps look like between the pictures, if there are any gaps. You know what, before I do that, let me highlight the first one here. And if I go to resize, by default they should have all been set to responsive width and height. So let's just leave it at that for now. And take a look, preview page in browser. Okay, and they're obviously working because it works at this size, but let me just span out here to the larger size. And it looks like my snapping worked well. My pictures are all in alignment. And if I wanted to adjust them, I'll show you how you can do it, but I actually am happy with the size and so on of the photos within the frames. Let me just bring it down here. See, as I resize, it is responding, responsive width and height. And you can see when I get to the smallest, they are proportionally the same size. And there's my footer down there. Okay. Now, one thing we will be able to do once we start to establish our responsive breakpoints on the pages is I can actually raise the footer to close the gap a bit more. But that's something we'll get to in a little while. Let me go back to my page. And I'm going to group these, so I'll just shift click them all. I could click across and highlight as well, like that. And I'll group them. It's Control G, Command G on the Mac, or you can go Object, Group. Okay, so now as a group, it's a single click to highlight them all. If I wanted to move them or change the resize characteristics, it's a single selection. Again, I will save.